Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining in. We'll start very shortly. Oh, hi, Gary. How are you going?
Yeah, hi, Walker. Hi, everyone. I'll just give everyone a chance to come on. There's still a few more to come by the looks of it.
All right. So while everybody's waiting here, I'll do a bit of introduction. So my name is Walker Tapia. I'm Club Secretary. And of course, Gary Schmidt, Club President with me. We'll both be going through a presentation, which we will share with you afterwards. But it's an opportunity for you to go through the presentation with us, and we will answer some questions if they come up. Hopefully, most of you should be already very much familiar with the rules and expectations about the season, but there are some new things that we'll point out to you. So it's important that you listen, important that you take note of things that are very relevant to you, and you are the conduit to your team. So you are the ones that we rely on to pass on information, important information to your team members so they know. You know, it's amazing how many times things don't go right, or some things prevent players from going on the field, and the first thing they say is, I didn't know, or no one told me. This is the way that we relay messages to individuals. This is the most effective way. Communication is obviously very important to us as a management committee. We do our best to relay everything we can to our members. All the information is pretty much either on the website or passed through this Managers and Coaches Forum. So we do rely on you to please ensure that you pass on the information to your team members. All right, so we'll be having a session. You're welcome to either put a question in the chat if you feel that's your preference, or as we go along, simply ask the question. Be mindful that we're going to cover a lot of things today. We're going to try and do it inside the hour. So the question you might be anxious to ask may be something that you would expect to be covered during the hour. So just hold off from asking things that you feel like, yeah, for sure they're going to talk about it, but just give us time to go through everything that we've got to cover. Okay. How are we going, Gary? Do you think we've got enough people online?
Yeah, I think we do. There's one question, just checking whether or not we're recording this, and yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
And I think, we're not going to wait too much longer, to be honest, because it'll eat into the time. So there's clearly, based on the teams and formations, there should be somewhere in the vicinity of 120 teams. So that means there should be somewhere in the vicinity of 200 odd people, but as you can see, we've got 10% of that.
No, but Gary, this is only 12 to seniors, so it's not that.
Oh, well, so that's true. Yes, mind slip. But anyway,
I think we've got a good representation.
So yeah, let's kick that off. Walker, I think you probably got control of the slides, do you?
Yep.
So yeah, it'll follow, as Walker said, it'll follow a similar format. The purpose is so that we can give a clear overview to everyone.
Sorry, is that Gary that's frozen?
It's all going to be challenges, I suspect.
Sorry, Gary.
This
Gary,
is a support session for yourself. Yep.
Just hold on, Gary. I think you're freezing in and out. Could someone confirm whether that's Gary freezing, or is that me not hearing Gary properly?
I'll just turn off my video. Yeah, so it looks like, thanks, Zach. Looks like it's probably me. So I've just turned off the video. Is that better now?
It sounds better, yeah.
So good head for radio. And then, so yeah, the approach is a little information session, and followed up, as Walker said, with Q&A at the end. So in terms of the next slide, Walker, have you?
All right. Yep, I can help.
Thank you.
So Barrackville Football Club is a community-based club. It's not for profit. So it's predominantly run by volunteers. We do have a couple of full-time staff, but that's more in the administration or operation side of things. What you see that happens after hours, whether that be at training or on game day on the weekend, is virtually 100% volunteers. So we ask you to be respectful and considerate because these people are giving their time up to help the club. There is a value that the club aspires to, and that is to provide a friendly environment that fosters enjoyment. It allows people to develop their skills, create friendships, and inspires a team spirit for all ages and all levels of football. We as a management committee take these values very, very strongly, and every decision that we make for this football club is based on these values. All right. And of course, we play in the Canterbury District Football Association, and we have to abide by their rules. And then it goes up the chain to Football New South Wales and Football Australia. All right. All right. So just continuing there, we all must abide by a code of conduct. You may have realised that the code of conduct is part of registration. So when we accept registration, we also are accepting code of conduct. We're not going to go into the code of conduct in any detail today because it is really just common sense, right? We just need to make sure that we respect ourselves, we respect our team, we respect officials, and we respect the opposition. It extends to whoever's off the field as well. So we respect, it could be ground officials, it could be spectators as well. Even respect the environment that we play in. So I know for the senior competition, for example, they like some beverages after a game. We should pick up after ourselves and leave the area clean. But like I said, it's just common sense. Let's not get ourselves into any trouble where there's dismissals or reports. Marrickville FC is very proud of its reputation within the district in terms of how we conduct ourselves on game days and such. Given Marrickville's size in terms of the number of teams we have and the number of members, we have a relatively low incident record, and we're very, very proud of that. So we hope we can continue that in season 2022. And if you as coaches or managers see a team member that is starting to get heated up and you feel that, you know, the heat of the moment may take them away from being under this code of conduct that we strive for, just have a word with them or put them aside, maybe take them off the field for a moment. Just let them know it's not worth getting yourself sent off because there's complications and there's, you know, consequences as well. Not to mention you're dismissed. You're also could be suspended for a minimum of 1 game, 3 games, or even more, depending on what the offence is. But there's also fines and fees associated with getting your playing card returned. This is could be as anything from as being a bit of a potty mouth around the referee, obviously through to violence. So please do take the code of conduct very seriously and abide by what is expected from everybody.
Yeah, on what we'll see on the next slide is, I suppose, a little bit of what Walker was talking about in terms of breaches. The club does have an internal code of conduct review committee. It will be formed as required amongst the members of the management committee and senior leaders, and it will review each of the matters that have been raised to it. And a determination will be made that will also align with what the CDSFA has to rules of adjudication have with that as well. I suppose there's a broad statement. If there's any other behaviours that you see which are suspect or you're not too sure about, please feel free to email the managing director, which most people should know is Georgie, on the email address there that's at the bottom of the slide. I suppose moving on in terms of the next, I suppose, administrative related aspects, working with children's checks. this is more pertinent for managers and coaches with a under 12 through to under 18 setting. If there are any teams that are slightly above that who have minors, then that will also apply to them. But as a broad statement, that's not the case. To register, for those of you who have registered, you'll note that you'll need to incorporate your working with children's check number. A lot of people now are probably just coming up for, because it lasts for 5 years, coming up for renewal. So a lot of you probably had to renew those for those who've been around for 5 or so years. It is now a much more easy process to do. You will see later on that in order for you to be in the technical area, there will be 2 requirements you need. One of them is a vest, another is an ID card. You will not be able to have your ID card printed if you do not have yourself registered as a coach or a manager. In order to register yourself as a coach or manager, you'll need to have your working with children's check performed. So for those of you who haven't yet registered, please ensure that you get both working with children's check and go into Dribble to register yourself as a coach and a manager. In terms of training, moving on to the next part of it, we've got a new park this year, or access to a new park, and that's Tempe Reserve. For those teams, will be training Tempe Reserves Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, where the traditional 2 parks, Mackie and Steele, is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The key aspect on training to note is that the insurances that we all pay for that incorporate in administration fees, which roughly make up 1/3 of the registration cost, they only cover the training if it's performed at a sanctioned ground. So if there is any training facilities or a trial game is held where it's not an officially sanctioned game, then the insurance, and so a player is injured, the insurances that are taken out as part of registration won't cover you. So that's an important aspect to note for both yourselves as well as the players if they ask, can we do it somewhere else? The key thing for where do I get my training field is that on Friday, the 18th of March, you'll get a notification that it's open, and you'll be able to go on and select a regular session and slot where you want to train, and that will be it for the. You don't have to put it in week on week on week. You just have to put in that 1 week, and that will then be replicated for the rest of the season. I suppose we'll probably just towards the end we'll do a little bit of a quick check to see who of the teams needs training kits. A number of you return the kits, but for those of you who need top-ups, they'll be ready from next Thursday onwards. For those of you who need full kits, to ensure that they're available, and when you do come through to pick them up, they're all ready to go. If you could email that through to the managing director, the intent is that they should all be ready for you to then pick them up and go. And that'll include the balls, cones, and bibs. Walker, do you want to talk to the dribble draw?
Sure. All right. So I'm sure you knew from last year we started using Dribble as the official fixture website. Again, we'll be going to Dribble to use that. So all the official games will be on the Dribble website. Okay. It is possible that the fixture will be altered during the week for whatever reason. Grounds get moved, another team forfeited, which then bumps everybody up. Perhaps there could be various reasons. So please check Dribble regularly, particularly on a Friday before your game on the weekend. The off chance it might have moved. Okay, so please do that. And I'm sure you all have some sort of communication with your team, whether that be the official app that Marrickville Football Club supports, and that's Team Linked, to communicate any such changes. Please ensure that all your players are registered through Dribble. And by that, I mean that they've got every detail in Dribble, including their jersey number. and dribble also, if you need to borrow a player, it should be programmed with the business rules, the rules associated with who you can borrow and you can't borrow. So if dribble doesn't allow you to do something with a backup player or something like that, try not to force that onto the field with the referee, because it's not up to the referee to manage dribble. It's likely that you're not allowed to borrow that player. And so do not do that, because it could lead to a fine. All right.
Yeah, we'll go through that in the next few slides and expand that a little bit more. So I put a question into the chat to see what the experience was last year with people, because I think, to be fair to say, it was a bit patchy. A lot of people had experienced that referees didn't know what they were doing or weren't told, and also then there was internet connectivities challenges, but then there was also, I suppose, some data content issues. CDSFA is, for those of you familiar with IT processes, CDSFA is a beta site. The good thing about that is that we get first access to functionality, but it also means that we get some of the challenges that come along with it.
Yeah. I guess just to add that, I know there's going to be challenges, and we've had some experiences, but when you compare to having the cards, having to get the cards, write them on a piece of paper and so forth, I manage a couple of teams, and I think the dribble application is a lot better than what we've had in the past. It does have some teething issues, but it's better than what we've had in the past, and it's a lot better than what we could be going into. So do try to have some patience with it. It always works, right? It's not the matter of, oh, this doesn't work, give up on it. Maybe you're not doing something right. Maybe you're trying to use a player that isn't available or what have you. There's a logical explanation why the dribble may not be working at that point. Be patient with it. Ask the other team manager for assistance if that's the case. But once you get used to it, it's a pretty good application to use.
Yeah, we're about to step you through, I suppose, some of the before games, during games, and after game steps, just to refresh you. Because for those of you who were using it last year, it's been the best part of 9 months since you did look at it. The software has changed over the last 9 months, and the registration process that we all went through is now run through Dribble. You didn't go to myplayfootball.com.au. So I suppose for the first time use of the registration modules of Dribble, it was quite data onerous. There was some links to tap into what was the legacy data. However, I think when I went through the Dribble process, whilst it was quite stepped, it was logical and it captured all the information that's needed. So the expectation is the game management side of it is going to be exactly the same. This part is emphasised to be done before the game. If you try to do your experience, if you try to do this on your phone or on a smaller screen tablet on the field, that will heighten your chance of having a diminished experience. So combining what was said before, Friday night, before you start to have too many wines or beers under your belt, the suggestion is to check the drawers, confirm your teams, review who's turning up or not turning up, and do all these player step managements sometime on Friday evening before Saturday, or if you're lucky and playing on Sunday, then you can do it sometime Saturday. You have to be registered in Dribble in order to get it. So if you haven't got that, then we'll speak to that separately later. You do need an app. The app is free. And then you get to select the tiles from for the American football team. Now, in terms of when you go to the match sheet tab, which is step 6, you'll be able to perform search and filter functions on the desired match fixtures. You'll see the home and the away and the referee tabs. I suppose the important bit is you want to select the players. Search on their first name. So if you're searching for Gary or for Walker, as Walker said before, if Walker or Gary is in the appropriate age group, is in a valid division, and neither of us have any suspensions, you will see our names. If you don't see our names, it's because one of those other feature sets has been breached, and therefore they are not a valid player for selection. There's no matter of forcing the system to do it, it won't do it. So there will be something in the back end that is preventing that from happening. There was some issues with that last year. However, from the testing that's gone through this year, that hasn't yet proven to be a problem. But to some extent, we'll see what it's like when we actually get into the onto the field and play for it. You'll submit it. The referees will have a look at it to ensure it's complete, and then to a large extent, that's the setup prior to the game ready to go. When you're actually at the game or at the ground, perform one final review of what you've put in there, late minute changes or dropouts. Then review the opposition's players, which is walk on the next page.
Sorry, Gary, before you get this one, I just wanted to just add a couple of things there. Firstly, you can have a maximum of 16 players on the team sheet. If your squad is more than 16, you just have to nominate your first 16 that will be playing in that round. And if you do that, correctly, then you've got 16, and then whatever number, if you've got a squad of 19, the next 3 won't be available. That catches out a few coaches. So please be sure that anybody that is not playing that round, you make them unavailable. That'll help you with your first 16. And the other one was, I just thought about something. No, I've forgotten what it was. It'll come back to me. There you go, Gary.
Yeah, what Walker's just said there, we'll come up to that feature a little bit later on in this presentation as well. Dribble has been configured to support the rules of the game. So you won't be able to, even for player transfers, you won't be able to go over the maximum that you're allowed to have on any one particular game day. So if you're finding it frustrating, you say, oh, last year I could do it. Potentially on paper, yes, you could. And when you did, you probably get fined. To prevent the fines, it's been codified into the algorithms at the back end of the application. So just as a quick recap, review when you actually get to the game, all you need to do is review what you've done previously when you're at home. Whether you do it on your tablet or your phone at home, or you do it on a laptop or a computer, entirely up to you. But all you need to do, if you've done all that, is just review it at the game, show it to the opposition. They'll get to see whatever it is they need to see. You'll be able to observe their team as well. And you'll be able to look at the ID cards. The referee will look at the ID cards. Then it's a matter of confirming it. The rule of no card, no play still exists. To some extent, that's predominantly being dealt with because you can't register without a photo, and that is a requirement. No player needs to carry a card around with them anymore. The challenge that will occur if there's no referee is that you'll still view the ID cards. And then go to the officials tab and as a non-accredited referee for the game, and then manage the input that's required there. Clearly, that person acting as the referee, and we'll go to what it means to act as a referee shortly. They will need to do that on either your phone or device or the opposition's device in order to manage that part of the process. At the completion of the match, the manager needs to remove the players that didn't play, enter the score, the referee will check, and then confirm any of the yellow or red cards that were issued as well. Enter the scores and press save. So
I remembered what I was going to say too, something else there, Gary, is sometimes players will bring an old jersey, or if you borrow a player from another squad, they may have the same number as another team member, and so that'll prevent you from adding that player. You just have to update the number, and an easy way to do that is if you've got a bit of tape, just add a 1 to the number and make it 113 or make it
yeah, actually, that's probably a good point, which is actually not written down yet in any of the slide packs. There's a couple of practical things that coaches and managers should include in their kit bag. I would highly recommend that you buy some white tape and that white tape can then be used for either strapping a boot because someone's boot's fallen apart on the day, or more importantly, if you do need to create a change of number on a player's back, that you can do that. It's usually easier to choose turn a 1 into a 4. So rather than being 10, it becomes 40, or some other straight letter. But it's best. It is good practice to have a roll of white tape in your bag, together with potentially some ice and or some, I suppose, Dinker Rub should any of the players need it. The older members probably bring all that themselves anyways. In terms of the, I suppose, some of the challenges that exists, again, like I said before, no card, no play. So if it can't be found, the card, then that player won't be allowed to proceed with the game. I'm trying to conceive of how that's going to be possibly the case, given that everything is digital now. So it's going to be a network connectivity issue that will generate that, which will probably be the case for the whole team, not just for one player, to be honest. When you're playing another red-based team, which is predominantly Punch Bowl or Marrickville FC side, there is also the incidence if you're playing an APIA team. Their uniform last year was changed to being almost identical to Marrickville. So that's another team where that may be the case. When you are playing a known red team, it is the home team's obligation, irrespective of where you are playing, Mackie, Steel or Tempe. You could be playing your home game away at Strathfield. If you're the home game and you're playing another red team, it is the home team's obligation to wear the alternate strip. So you need to be aware of that ahead of time. And because clearly if you're out at Strathfield and you need the alternate strip, there's no way you're going to make it back to Mackie in time to pick up the shirt. But having said that, you'll also see down there, the last line is don't be going on the match day to be picking up the shirt, because the chances of someone being there to be able to deal with it is quite low. So you do need to work through what rounds, if any, you're going to be having to collect the alternate black shirt. The other thing is last year we experienced poor returns practices by teams. They do need to be washed in cold water, and they do need to be returned on your training day, whether you're at, irrespective of the parks, anywhere between Tuesday to Thursday. If you don't return them, then the other teams who need them the next weekend don't have them. If you have 2 games in 2 weekends in a row, or you got a midweek game that you need to retain them for, please communicate that via email to Managing Director. Do not just presume, oh, I'll just keep it a bit longer, because that's how the, either individual shirts go walkabouts, or alternatively the kits in their entirety go walkabout. The club is considering, depending on how the practice goes this year, to be imposing fines on teams who don't return them by the due dates. Because all it means is when a team wants to collect them, and even if you intend to return it on Thursday, but a team on Tuesday is wanting that size, it's not there ready to give. So it is, I can't stress more importantly, if you need the alternate strip, please return it, wash it and return it.
Yeah. I'll add to that it's probably best if someone, such as the coach or manager, collects all the alternate kits after the game, rather than relying on everybody to wash it individually and then having it returned on match day. On training night, because that's when kits get broken up. And, you know, at the beginning of the season, all the kits are grouped based on numbers, obviously, and sizes. So there could be, you know, a number of smalls, number of mediums, number of larges, etc. But once they get broken up, it's very, very difficult. And then you get people, you know, grabbing individual sizes from different kits, and it just wrecks up the entire sequence of different kits. So please be mindful of others, because it could be you that could be coming to pick up a kit on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, and you expect it to be complete, you expect it to be washed, and you expect it to be ready for you to use the next weekend. So if we all do that, we should have a pretty good season when it comes to playing teams that are also red
Yep. Walker, do you want to chat it through the scores, which is on the next slide?
All right. Yes, of course. So as a manager or coach, it is our responsibility to confirm the scores at the end of the game with the referee. The referee will input that score into Dribble, and then once he's done that, it's locked up. But it's up to us to make sure that we confirm the score with the referees. Doesn't always happen, but sometimes the referees can get it wrong. They can also get it switched around as well, where you're the winning team and you might be, for whatever reason, referee thinks that you weren't Marrickville and you were somebody else. It has happened. So please check the scores and then follow the process in Dribble to put your score in there as well. If there's any concerns about it, either contact some other club, but don't forget also too that as a backup, we have to register the scores via text, and there is a very specific way that the robot reads the scores. So please use this format to ensure that we don't have to then manually read 152 scores, because that's how many teams we've got. Please just make sure that this is done correctly. What I do is I normally just save the format and I just update it on a week-to-week basis, and then I copy and forward that. That works for me. If that works for you too, then I recommend you use that. It makes it nice and simple. And I always try to do that as soon as I finish the game, because later on, sometimes that doesn't happen. And we're meant to have all scores into the association by 9 o'clock, I think, on Monday. Please don't send it to us at 8:45 in the morning on a Monday, because all that work would have been done either on a Sunday night or very early on a Monday. If the scores aren't submitted, there's a fine for the team. So please ensure that you submit the scores on a Sunday evening at the latest, preferably immediately after the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next slide is about in the details of player eligibility. These are quite essential and very critical. They have been the bane of almost every team's existence when you're short of players. So we'll go through these again from through each of these points. Thankfully, these rules have not changed from last year. So if you have it completely understood from last year, the good news is nothing has changed. So I suppose the first point is in terms of there is a maximum number of players that can be brought up, and that is up to 4 people more than what's in the team. Walker was speaking before about the maximum number for a 11-a-side team is 16. You won't be able to borrow, the Dribble will not permit you to borrow any more than that. Each player, in addition to that, can only be borrowed 4 times through the season. At the 5th time, they can be borrowed more, but it's on the 5th time when you borrow that player, they will leave their initial team and they will become one of your team thereafter for the rest of the season without any exemptions or without any, request to alter that. The other, balancing act is that if you want to use any player from another team in the final series, if you make it that far, that player has to have played for your team at least 3 times. So there is a bit of juggling that needs to occur over the season and in the lead up to the last of the rounds, where you are clear about which players that you have that are available to transfer and borrow. If you miscalculate and they don't have 3, or you miscalculate and they have had more than 4 games and their team is still in the finals, they will end up missing their home team's final series, and again, there will be no correspondence entered into to be able to alter that. Whose responsibility is it to keep track of this? It is the coach and the managers. The club can't tell you. The district won't tell you. when you borrow players, you need to be very clear about how many times you're borrowing them. So all those points there are very crucial for the management. It's very technical, it's very administrative, but they're the rules that everyone has to work under and live by. And there is no, I'm sorry, I didn't know excuse that's permitted. Everyone is told at the start of the season. Penalties exist. You can read for yourselves under what circumstances that's the case. And every year, some teams, sometimes multiple teams, transgress any one of those top dot points. Players unregistered. I'll just sneak a mate in because I know he plays up in the Hornsby area. You've got someone, you're playing someone who's somehow suspended but makes it through the system. Any of those, you will be, the penalties are quite extensive. First of all, you will lose 3 points. Whether you won or you lost the game, you will still lose 3 points, or drew for the matter. You'll also be fined. So there's a registration fee involved. So that's going to be the best part of $400. And in addition to that, depending on the culpability as determined by the CDSRA board, they will fine you a extra grievance factor as well. In essence, don't even bother trying to appeal it because it's you won't get it. So don't be playing illegible players. If it's found out, it won't be worth the pain and the aggravation you'll be going through. Forfeits. There is the same procedure in this area as for previous years. 3 days notice is required. So if that's a Saturday, if you're playing on Saturday, Walker on the next slide, then you need to give notice by 3 p.m. on the Wednesday. If you're playing on a Sunday, you need to give notice by 3 p.m. on the Thursday. You give notice point in time, your team will be considered to have forfeit anything time up to including start time. Your team will be fined. You will lose the points, and you need to pay the referees' fees for the other team as well. So it is very important that you understand what is the players who can play and whether or not you have the minimum requirement. 7 players is what is needed to field a team in order to play a game. If you've got 6, then it's a no game. You may not have any subs if you play 7. And bizarrely, there are some towards the end of the season, you need to play a game in order to get some points, whether even it be a draw. If you don't play the game, you will be forfeited, and therefore you will lose the points as well as get fined. So it's important that you understand the rules about forfeitures. There is an extra component associated with COVID, but we'll come up to that in a moment. Because most people, if you haven't noticed, well, I suppose it's been a bit hard because of all the rain. However, you will encounter, as we're all finding, that families are going down with COVID, or at least as defined as a close contact with someone in the household. That means the rest of the family is then in isolation. You do not play. You need to follow the public health rules. So if one of your family has come down and tested positive, either via a RAT or a PCA, you also need to follow the public health guidelines, which means you are quarantined. But we'll talk about the COVID stuff in a moment. Walker, do you want to talk about referees and officials payments and some of the judiciary things?
Sure. Just before we leave this one, Gary, I do recall that the maximum number of players you can borrow is 4. But if you have, for example, 10 players, and that's all, the maximum number of players you can borrow is 1 to complete your side to 11 players. You can't borrow subs. I'm pretty confident that's the rule as well. I don't know that we covered that one.
That's a valid point. Yeah.
Yeah, so please be mindful of that, because if you have 10 players and you borrow 2, you can also be fined and deducted points as well. So even though you can borrow a maximum of 4, the other rule that trumps that is that you can only borrow as many players as you need to complete 11 in a team.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right. So for under 6s to under 11s, it doesn't apply to you, but there is now a new game leaders format. And this is just for your information. Game leaders are essentially local club referees that are being developed, and they will be mentored by a referee. And so if you see these game leaders around in the juniors, you'll understand why. All right. But let me just move on to well, I don't think there's anything there for the seniors, but I'll just talk to that. Obviously, with senior games or full-sided field games, you'll get at best a referee, and even if you're lucky, you'll probably get 2 linesmen as well. It is the obligation of the team manager or coach to make appropriate payment to the referees and their officials before the game. Some of these referees come from other games that are playing at other grounds. They may not be there just before your kickoff. Some of them actually play as well, and they may not get there just before your kickoff. So you may have to fix them up the full fee at halftime. Be mindful of that. They're trying to do both jobs, whether that's 2 separate grounds to referee or officiate, or they're playing and then they're running to be a referee. We're lucky to have referees. You know, I've played with a lot of players that come from other districts, and they're amazed that we always seem to have at least a referee when we play. There's a lot of other associations where it's common that a parent or a spectator picks up a bib and starts to blow the whistle. All right. It's very important that we respect the referees. That can't be emphasized enough. If, for example, you're playing between under 12s to under 18, the referee is typically older than the age group that they're officiating. Again, be respectful of the referees. They're going through their development phase to become, more experienced referees. It is unfortunate that a lot of young referees, and I'm talking about kids, leave from being a referee, not because the money's not any good, not because they don't love the game, but simply because of the lack of respect they receive from spectators and or team officials. So please don't do that. When it comes to representing Marrickville, make sure that we respect all our team officials, no matter what age they are. And if you do have some concerns about the referee, you can always provide some feedback through the appropriate channels rather than saying something that you may regret. It's not unusual for a referee, if they feel that they've been abused, to include that in the match report, and that could lead to a team fine and or suspension for an individual that's identified as being abusive to a referee. All right, so it goes without saying, respect our referees.
If you want a reminder for how much to pay for each age group, general referee and line assistant, that exists on the website under resources, resources on game day, and then general resources. It's there every week. Ensure that you've got the right money available each week for the referees. That's how much your team needs to pay the referee.
Yeah, just remember the referees aren't an ATM, so they don't have change necessarily. And, if they do give you change, that's great, but try to always have the correct money. And be supportive, because if you support the referees on those 50-50 calls, they might pay you back.
Okay. On the next slide, talk about judiciary. The process that's in place for 22 is the same as that for last year. Red card fees are $75. Judiciary report comes out on Wednesday. Suspension follows. You can appeal it if you want. Appealing is $50. If you are thinking of appealing, my strong suggestion is you have a chat to Georgie. She will go through whether or not you should have grounds. She's been a judiciary member at the district level. She knows what is the rules of assessment and engagement. If she tells you to drop it, to cop it, and keep serve the suspension, I would strongly advise and recommend that you adhere to that. As painful as it is, as aggrieved or as acrimonious as you feel, Georgie has a generally good read as to what is the likely outcome, because you can get a more aggravated response if you appeal and they find that you're wasting their time. So, but other than that, the judiciary cards and the reasons for issuing them, foul language, inappropriate language, gestures, is all there as it was for last year. The next part talks about the technical area. There's been no change to that this year. Just to reiterate, and they being the district seem to be clamping down on that a lot more last year when the games are on. Only 2 team officials are allowed in the technical area. Both of them need to be evidenced with a yellow vis shirt and their ID card. If you're asked for either of those and you can't produce them, you will be asked to leave. It's the same process that is applied to visiting coaches and managers. They also have the same rules applied to them. Whether their club makes it easy for them or not, don't really know, but the same rules apply to all. If you go to another ground, the expectation by the club under the code of conduct is that you'll wear your yellow high-vis vest in the technical area. Each team also needs to will be given an orange vest. That's for a ground official. That's for, I suppose, as an independent witness and observer in games should either on-field or off-field interactions and circumstances start to escalate. And it's that person who will then be gone to as a first point of clarification about what did or did not occur. The other part of the technical area is who is allowed in there from a team perspective. If you've got a player with a broken arm, don't get them to turn up in their red and sit on the bench so they can watch the game. They clearly cannot play with a broken arm in a cast. So they should not be in the technical area. Also, excess squad members, as Walker said, the maximum of 16. You've got 19. Don't be having the other 3 sitting down on the bench as well, irrespective if they're in plain clothes or they're in red. No more than the officials 2 are allowed in the area. And then please, as hard as it is, no children, no partners, and no friends under any circumstance. It just becomes too much of an issue and a challenge. In terms of the competition, broadly speaking, the district prefers to have even number of games. It's a home and away construct with the top 4 moving through into a final series. 6 out of 10 teams have various cycles of rounds that you will go through. And if you're interestingly challenged enough to be in a 12+ team, then you've got a bit of a hybrid approach to the games that are being played. We're in a La Nina. I think I've got that right. Apologies if I haven't. Expect that there is going to be a large number of washouts if this weather continues. That only increases the situation where there will be double headers. So please you can't really plan for them, but please prepare yourselves that there will be double headers and there won't be any free weekends through the season. Generally, the June long weekend will be avoided. And also for some of the junior age groups, the middle week of the July school holidays will be avoided. However, I wouldn't be betting any houses on that, especially if the weather is what it is.
I probably want to stress that one, Gary, to all our under 12 coaches and managers, because they're used to having breaks during the school holidays. in under 12s, that luxury is removed. So just keep that in mind. Pass that on to your parents as well, because they're used to having breaks during school holidays. That is not always the case once you're playing competitive football, meaning, for a point system.
Yeah. So if you are aware that you're going to be short, it doesn't mean, I've only got 10 in my team, I have to forfeit. No. The minimum is 7. The encouragement by the club is, based on their values, is to play the game. Yes, there could be a potentially a higher score than what ordinarily would occur, but at the end of the day, the players get experience about how to perform under pressure, and they are able to then, I suppose, adapt and learn out of that experience. The only weekend which guaranteed does not have any games is Easter, and it's Western Easter, not Orthodox Easter. That's the other thing is there will be Friday night and Wednesday night games as well. So please be prepared for when you get, or if and when you get called up for those. Walker, do you want to just quickly give an overview of COVID? Most of us should be pretty familiar with those, but now with some rules relaxing, there's still some observations that we need to pay attention to. Walker, are you still there? Possibly not. I will just talk through the COVID rules then. The broad statement is be respectful. It's washing your hands before. If you're sharing a lift to the game with someone, if you're feeling suspect, don't. Good practice would say you need to get there under your own steam. If you're having symptoms, the appropriate thing to do is give yourself a RAT test prior to the game. If you test positive, it's okay. Notify the team to say that's the case, and that will then be taken into consideration should the team end up having to forfeit. If a team does happen to forfeit as a result of COVID, then there won't be any of the forfeiture fines that will end up being applied to that team as a result. However, bearing in mind, if one team member, if you've got 12, 2 team members have COVID, and therefore you're playing with 10, that doesn't constitute a forfeit, and so there will be a game of 11 versus 10. I think other than that, that's probably all the rules associated with COVID. There's on the website, there's lots of coaching material. Walker, just saw you come back online. We're up to section 3.2 now. Almost all the material that you need is on the website. There is also coaching courses. So for those of you who are interested, please look on the website for those, or reach out to the club, or even go to the Canterbury website to see what would be of interest. And the club is quite open, if you're wanting to pursue that, to assisting you with the process. And if there's enough, then we will arrange to have that training session brought to Mackie or Steele or Tempe, and also consider subsidising and assisting you with any cost associated with that. In terms of communications, it will be via Team Link this year again. The club strongly encourages you to use Team Link. If the team itself, for whatever reason, is not willing, wanting, or open to using it, as a team manager, we're asking you to create one, because that is how the club is going to be communicating to you. If you don't have Team Link, the chances of you getting timely information will be significantly restricted, and it will be as hard as it is to say, it will be a told you so. This is the preferred way and to communicate with teams. The club will communicate with the coaches and the managers, is the first protocol. The second protocol is the coach and the managers communicate with the teams. The club will not be SMSing or messaging via Team Link any of the players. That will be the responsibility of the manager and the coach. If someone from another team hears, oh, I heard the games are cancelled, then they may all be at their ground, but they may not necessarily be at the ground that you're playing at. Use it as a stimulus to check and verify and validate. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility to communicate with your team. It's not the club's. There's also some slides.
I just want to add to that, Gary, sorry, before we move off this one, I just want to add that Team Link does take a bit of time to set up. And I guess that could be a deterrent from saying there, we'll use Team Link or maybe we'll just use WhatsApp. But once you invest that little bit of time to set up, I guarantee it will save you a lot of time during the season. And I come from a number of teams that use WhatsApp as well, which is a great communication tool. However, as a team manager or coach, you don't necessarily know who has said what in the chat, and you may have to scroll to find out if a player's coming or not and all that nonsense. In Team Link, it presents to you everybody that's said that they're available and everybody that said that unavailable. And it makes it so much easier when you're about to complete your dribble team sheet before the game to look at one page on Team Link and look at all the green ticks on who's coming and reconcile that against dribble. It's so much easier than having to go through the chats and find out who said what and whether they're coming or not, or they're just running late or whatever the case may be. So I do strongly recommend that you invest a bit of time to set up your Team Link and save a lot of time during the season.
Yep. I won't go through with you now the next 3 or so slides up to 4 about setting up Team Link. This information pack will be available for you to download off the website. That will explain to you how to use Team Link for your team. Wet weather, which is the important and the most time-critical information. The first rule, which is the rule that has been for a long time, presume your game is on. Until you've heard definitively to the contrary, your game is on. Your team, they can, if your team members are emailing, SMSing into various members of the committee or to Georgie, I can almost guarantee you they will be ignored. The expectation is that the coach and the manager manages the team. It's the coach and the manager who need to be very clear about what are the channels of communication for wet weather. If it's at a Marrickville home ground, then there is 2 parts. One is you'll be communicated via Team Link. The other is that there will always be a message on Facebook and or on LinkedIn. The calls will be made of an afternoon by council, and the club has to adhere to council. After Friday, it becomes a club's call, and there are rules of engagement that the council have been clear with each of the clubs about whether they will permit games to go on or not go on. Whether at non-Marrickville parks, the only source of information is the Canterbury District website. My suggestion is you go to the website sometime before a game, you save that as a favourite, and you have it in your phone or your device that you take to the game, and you check on that right up until the minute before the game starts. That is the only authority as to whether a game is a ground or a field on a ground is cancelled if it's not a Marrickville park. Marrickville also communicates there, so you will also see Marrickville's recording of whether grounds are open or not open there as well. Coming to the end, volunteer rosters.
Sorry, Gary, could I just add here a couple of things?
Sure.
So just re-emphasising that council during the week inspect the grounds approximately 3 o'clock, and then they will update the status on grounds. Please don't message the club or message social media to ask whether the ground is open or not at 1 in the afternoon, 11 in the morning, or even 2:59. We all find out from Inner West Council after 3 o'clock. And as soon as we find out, we will post it. There'll be an update on social media. So if you want to be aware of those updates, I suggest you follow Marrickville FC either on Instagram or on Facebook, so you will know. Okay, it's not that we're holding on to the information, we've forgotten to post it on social media. As soon as we find out, it'll be posted. Similarly, when Gary said that after Friday, if Friday is a lovely day, but suddenly it rains overnight Friday or Saturday morning or Sunday morning, we would make a call as a committee following inspection of the grounds. And that means someone has to get up out of bed really early in the morning and go and inspect Mackie and Steel Park. Sometimes it's not a clear-cut decision. Sometimes we've got to look at, okay, it is fine now, but is the weather going to get worse by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or whatever it may be? We may have to research it and find out more information rather than what's on an app in the mobile phone. These are pretty big decisions. Don't call us or don't message us at 8 o'clock or 7:30 and ask us if the ground is open. Someone has gotten out of bed really early in the morning, made their way to Mackie and walked around Mackie and then gone to Steel to inspect and see whether these grounds are fit to play on that day. We are not being lazy and haven't forgotten to post, and you're prompting us to remind us that we need to post or what the decision is. As soon as we find out, we will post it on Instagram or Facebook. Please cooperate with us and also pass that information to players, because they may feel that some of these decisions are instant. It's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Just because it's lightly raining at 9 o'clock in your games, you're looking to whether to head out from home because your game starts at 10. Just because it's lightly raining, that does not mean your game is off. So again, presume the training or the game is on until you've had it confirmed, and that confirmation could come, yes, whilst you're travelling to the ground, or could occur 1 minute prior to the game, as late as. It's just the way that it happens. But the endeavour is to always to try and have the game. In terms of volunteers, the rosters, the approach is the same as last year. There's two shifts. There's a 7:30 to 12:30 and 12:30 to 4:30. The canteens currently are scheduled to be at Mackie and Steel. At this stage, we're still in discussions with council as to whether or not we can use a building that does have canteen-esque facilities. However, there's challenges with building access, in particular, roller door being able to be opened and having that, whether that can be repaired, if at all, in time. But other than that, there will be a roster. Your team will be asked to attend to that roster. The intent is not that yourselves as coach or managers are the people turning up. Practice will say over the last years that it's the coach and the managers who tend to be those which also do turn up. The expectation is it's the rest of the team. That is hopefully an event that the coach and the manager does not, unless they want to, need to be there. It's the opportunity for the other parents who don't put their hand in other than for taking their children around to be able to participate. You need to have the requisite number of volunteers over the time frames. It's generally 8 at Mackie and generally 6 at Steel for most shifts. You need to have that number of people there, whether you organise to have every hour rotated or you have 2-hour half shifts, entirely up to you. However, it's your obligation as coach and manager to make sure that that is staffed. If we don't staff it, there will be, and if there's a no-show, your game will be forfeited by the club next week. It's as simple as that. The club really does need the volunteers to assist. It's a community-based club. It's a volunteer. It's a not-for-profit. This is how we keep the fees down. If we have to pay for each staff member, pay for a staff member to be there, then there will be a considerable increase in costs for memberships. And we're on the verge of having to do that because people don't adhere to the volunteering rosters. So it sounds a bit draconian. However, the benefit is you will get to commune with and see people in your area which you haven't seen for a while, get to strike up conversations and meet a whole range of different people. And that's the whole aim of it, is you do get to find out what sort of members exist in your club. Other than that, we're now at the end of the presentation.
Sorry, Gary, I'll just add there that you're likely only to do that once the season.
Unlikely, you are guaranteed to be only doing it.
And the roster comes out at the end of the month, so you would know for months ahead that the date that you're going to be that you're rostered on for the voluntary roster. What I would suggest is, if you're running Team Linked, is put it in there as a Team Link event and then see who's coming. Generally, you probably have to push and nudge some people to actually volunteer, but at least you know with Team Linked, you know who you have to nudge. I can't stress how important it is for the club in terms of maintaining the cost of fees and everything down. It's a good way to socialise with others in the community as well. So I do encourage you to encourage your team, and if you're in a junior age group, encourage parents to participate and come to the volunteer roster day. Well, it's actually a couple of hours, only about 3 hours, I think, Gary, isn't that right?
4 hours, the whole team.
4 hours, there you go.
By the time you've got 14 players times by probably 2 parents each, that's 28 people over the course of those that entire shift. That's the only time you have to do for the whole year. Don't be, they're just going to ask me again and again and again. No, it's one weekend, and it tries to blend in so you don't play on the day that team is playing. So if you're playing on a Sunday, you'll be rostered on a Saturday. If you're playing Saturday, you'll be rostered on a Sunday. That's generally the broad approach to it, so as to minimise the impact for the team on that weekend. If you realise for a weekend, for a whole host of different reasons, we can't get anyone to fill that weekend, you are more than welcome to reach out to another team and arrange a swap. However, if you do arrange a swap, you need to be very clear and communicate that to the club via an email. Because at the end of the day, if you're supposed to turn up on a shift and your team doesn't, and the other team that you thought had organised had turned up, they won't be the ones getting forfeited, it'll be your team. So again, it sounds a bit draconian, but that seems to be the easiest way in order to encourage people to manage their volunteer shift as best as possible. Okay, Walker, you probably might want to, just mindful we've gone over now, so apologies for your and thank you for your patience. There hasn't, Michael, thanks very much for your comments about dribble. So there's one advocate for it. So thank you very much. Are there any other questions that people either haven't typed in yet or are wanting to verbalise? Walker, are you able to release the mute? No, the presentation will not be emailed. Sorry, Victoria, the presentation will be available on the website. Are there any other? Thanks, Ben. See you later. Are there any other questions?
Just mindful that please use those mobile numbers with caution. Please don't call to find out if grounds are open or if training's on tonight, because that is information that can be found on either the website or on social media.
Joel, in answer to your question, senior men's, I didn't explicitly state what that was, but just to make life a bit easier, senior men's pay $35 to the centre referee and $17 for each line assistant should they turn up. So it'll be $34 for the line assistants and $35 for the centre referee.
You can get that information from the club website, okay, under game day resources as well. Any such questions like this, if you forget or don't remember, or someone asks you a question from your team, there's a link under club resources in the club website. Okay.
Thanks, Victoria. Speak to you later. Any other questions?
I think that might be it, Gary. So thanks very much, everybody. We hope you found this very useful. Have a great season. We hope that you enjoy a lot of success on the field, but importantly, you enjoy your football.
Yes. Thanks, Walker. Thanks, everyone. All the best for a fantastic and hopefully full season.
Bye from us.
Thanks, guys.